So Intense Battle Royale is one of the most criminally overlooked, underrated game modes in the arcade section of PUBG Battlegrounds. And I don't blame a lot of people for not really knowing what it is or giving it the time of day and understanding how useful it can be because Crafton doesn't necessarily promote the arcade game modes all that much. Everyone knows about Team Deathmatch more or less because that is such a common game mode to have in competitive shooters anyway. But beyond that, there hasn't been a lot of promotion for Intense Battle Royale. There hasn't been a lot of content around. And because I feel like it's actually a really, really cool game mode and could be useful as a good training tool for a lot of different players, I wanted to make a video talking about what it is and why I think it could be not only fun, but also useful. Not only is it a fun game mode on its own, right? Like it has its own advantages, and maybe you just don't feel like playing a full game of Battle Royale, but you really want to play some intense Battle Royale. Like that's what happens to me all the time. But also, even for training, this is really, really good in a lot of different ways. So I want to explain why that is. First off, though, let me explain what Intense Battle Royale is. The idea behind it is that you just jump immediately into the end game of PUBG. There are 12 to 16 players in four-person squads. Oftentimes that means there's 3 to 4 teams, but you can always queue up as a solo, as you and your friend as a duo with the matchmaking option turned off. So it's never a guarantee that there are only 4 teams. Sometimes you'll see 5, sometimes you'll see 6, but regardless, 12 to 16 players in squads of up to 4 people. The game then selects one of the multiple preset circle positions across all 8x8 maps plus Sanhok. So we're talking Erangel, Miramar, Tago, Vikendi, and Sanhok as those 5. Oh, and Destin as 6. There are preset circle positions across all of these maps, and they say that it's about phase 4 in size. Everyone gets on the plane, jumps out as normal, but compared to traditional Battle Royale, instead of dropping with nothing, you're already preset with a whole bunch of gear. You have a level 2 chest, you have a level 2 helmet, you have a level 3 backpack, you have a bunch of meds, and then you also, most importantly, have 3 boxes that you can open to get a random weapon of what the box says. So you have SMG, you have AR, and then you have DMR/sniper rifle. And so you could technically open up all 3, but generally you're just going to open 2 because you only have 2 weapon slots. You get a random weapon from those cases, and then bam, you're good to go, you're good to fight. Now, in the preset circles, if there are buildings and whatever, they do also spawn loot as normal, so you can go and get some more stuff. Like, there's a couple of, on Miramar specifically, there are a couple of circles that have, like, those really big warehouses, and the really big barn warehouses, they have a whole bunch of loot in them, so it's really good that you can go in and customize your loadout a little bit, because while the weapon is random, each weapon does come with its preset attachments. And, like, for yours truly, when I have an M4, when I have an Ace, if I have a vert grip, I prefer a tac stock. If I have the heavy stock, I prefer a thumb grip. This one comes with both the vert and the heavy. So, if you want to customize it, it's possible to go and get some loot, but generally it's not going to be the biggest thing because, again, you start off with all of this loot. Furthermore, there are cases alongside already scattered across the map, already scattered across the zone. I don't know if they're preset. I'm sure that there's some level of randomness to where their locations are. I haven't studied this because that's like an insane level of going in and just hoping you don't get shot while trying to like survey the map. But regardless, there are 3 types of preset loot crates. They're red, which is more weapons and ammo. So again, if you're like, oh, I don't want this, K2, because whoever wants a K2, run to the red crate and you can pick up, a random assortment. It's got like 4 or 5 weapons in it. Usually it's a DMR or AR, so like you'll see a lot of like SLRs, some M4s, some Aces. Generally, it's those type of like top tier professional competitive weapons there. So you can go and swap that out. There's also the blue crates, which is meds as well as grenades. So you'll find smoke grenades, blue zone grenades. I'm assuming frag grenades, though I can't recall off the top of my head, but definitely smokes and blue zone grenades in there. And then, of course, like first aid kits and boosts. And then there's yellow, which is, I don't know how to, like, because blue is utility, but then yellow is also utility, but yellow is like defensive utility because it's level 3 gear, which is great. You can never guarantee that it's going to be both a helmet and a vest. Sometimes it's only helmet, sometimes it's only a vest, sometimes it's one of each. So again, it's random what's in these crates. But yellow is going to have level 3 armor in it. It's also got deployable shields, things like that. And also, it sometimes even has E pickups. I'm pretty sure it's yellow that has E pickups. It's kind of rare, but I'm pretty sure yellow is the one that has the E pickups. Again, I don't know why anyone would ever use an E pickup in Intense Battle Royale. I think I've seen it once. I tried to bait it out once myself just to see what would happen, but anyway, regardless, it's in there if you ever feel like you need it. And then, of course, on top of those preset crates that are scattered alongside the map, there is, of course, the crate drop from the sky, as usual, with the level 3s, with the crate weapons like the FAMAS and the Groza and the P90 and etc., and like all the really good stuff. So yeah, that's the game. It's you, your team, drop down, and like regular Battle Royale, you try and be the last alive. It's just you start off with all this gear, and you start off much later into the game, so the rounds usually last around 10, maybe 15 minutes if it really drags out. Sometimes there can be some hardcover, some compounds in the zone towards the very end, which, as you know, does drag out games because the lines of sight are much more closed off. But it's generally significantly faster than a regular 30-minute Battle Royale on Erangel, Tego, whatever. So the reasons why I would recommend playing this, I'd recommend this to a lot of different types of people. The first thing to note, though, is that why it's so good is that you get immediately into the action, and it is so useful just to practice team fighting. Compared to TDM, which is just chaos, and it's really good just for practicing spraying and being involved in the chaotic mess that is TDM, it is not the same. TDM is not the same as like an actual proper team fight in Battle Royale. This is a lot more one-to-one. In fact, I would say it is like 95% close. I'll go over the differences later on, but for most people, this is going to be a significantly better practice session for how fighting in Battle Royale will actually play out. And because of that, I actually think that it is particularly good for beginners, because instead of having to loot for 15 minutes and then losing a fight because you're new at the game, you and your team, you and your squad are new at the game, this is a really good way to just jump into the fight. You're going to lose at the beginning, but you don't have to then load up, wait 15 minutes to loot again, and then lose a fight again. So you're actually able to get into the action a lot more. And you also don't have to worry about the macro aspect of it because you're already in phase 4. There are vehicles here. You can use that to move around, but it's not going to be nearly the same. It's a lot more of a readjustment of positioning rather than just moving into the zone that you would experience if the game starts at phase 1 to whatever. So phase 4, you don't have to worry about the macro aspect, and then everyone is jumping out of the plane as normal, so you can see the parachutes. You also get a general idea of where everyone is playing, so you don't have to worry so much about getting backstabbed. Where is everyone? That whole information game is something that you don't need to worry about. This is a good way just to jump in and practice that fighting, get involved, get into the nitty-gritty, because then at that point, once you're comfortable with the combat in this game, once you're comfortable in how to manage team fights, how to really spread your positioning out, how to play off of each other, how to revive each other, how to 1v2, how to really isolate individuals, all of that good stuff that you really need to be able to win team fights. Once you get that down, then you can go into the regular Battle Royale and start to learn the macro aspect of it, but with the team fighting as a basis, as a floor to be able to fall back on. Because learning the macro before you learn the micro, before you learn the combat, is kind of backwards in terms of what will make this an enjoyable experience for beginners especially. So for beginners, I would highly recommend this, especially if you can queue up with at least one other friend with you. If you random queue, again, random queuing as a beginner in any game is a bit wild, but in a Battle Royale where you don't have the, how do you say it? In other games, there is the preset goal. So in a MOBA, it's you control this lane and you try and push to the enemy ancient/nexus, whatever it's called. And attack shooter, we're on this side, they're on that side. We have to, plant this bomb or stop this bomb from getting planted. Like there is that preset goal. There is you're set in a position and you're pointing into a direction. Battle Royale doesn't have that. So solo queuing as a newbie can be very off-putting because you do not know what's going on. You don't know what strategies you need to employ. So having at least one other friend with you would make this experience even better than trying to solo. That being said, people do use voice comms in IBR about 50% of the time, maybe a little less. It is a casual game mode. It's not ranked, so no one's going to feel obligated to use their mic. Sometimes I don't even bother talking to people because I'm just there to shoot and then leave. But you can learn, you can engage with your teammates if you have that voice comm setting set up in the game. So what I mean to say is that it's not, solo queuing as a newbie isn't a total waste of time, there are just difficulties you're going to have to deal with it. So if you are new, if someone's bringing you into the game, if you want to check out Intense Battle Royale, definitely try and bring a friend with you. But regardless, this will be a much, much better tool to learn the game, in my opinion, to have like a good leg up going into the proper Battle Royale than just trying to grind out the regular Battle Royale for like 3 hours and going out 50th every time. I also personally think this is a much better solo experience. Subjectively, I'm not a fan of solo. I don't think that playing solo is particularly fun. It's an entirely different experience from duos and squads, and part of that is because of when you get knocked, if your teammates win the fight, you can get revived back up, and then of course now with the new blue chip being across all the 8x8 maps, you can then get called back in, etc. Solo is a completely different story. If you die, you die, which means that the threat of getting called out by someone who has a positional advantage over you, has the informational advantage over you, is really, really brutal. Stealth is a really big thing in solos, and so it's an entirely different experience from what I enjoy at PUBG, which is duos and squads. So this is a much better solo experience, in my opinion, even though I'm not a newbie at this game. I just find it a lot more enjoyable. When I want to play PUBG, none of my friends are on, I will solo queue into Intense Battle Royale. So back to what I said earlier about it being a much better, in my opinion, I think it's better training than TDM. You throw that into the fact that some people might enjoy playing this more as a solo than they would solo PUBG. I think it's really good to just get some practice in and just play the game in general. And so if you haven't tried out Intense Battle Royale before as a solo player who's waiting on friends to get on, highly recommend that as well. Now, a few things to keep in mind of this game mode is that, especially, again, this is going back to talking about beginners learning this game mode, there is no info or fog of war aspect compared to regular BR, and generally there are a lot more people alive in a regular game at this point. There being only 16 players alive max in Phase 4 is very low, very low. I don't even think back in the old days of 90% of the lobby hot dropping school were there this few people alive in Phase 4. So technically, because it is Phase 4, calling it endgame is a bit incorrect. Phase 4 is technically mid-game, but the reason why I call it endgame is because there are 16 players alive. It's neither going to be a direct one-to-one experience of Phase 4 in a regular BR or a one-to-one experience of 16 players alive in a regular BR, because usually those things don't match up all that much, but it's close enough that I think, screw it, it doesn't really matter. The experience is going to be very, very similar, and again, just practicing that team fighting is going to be the important thing. It's also third person. There was a time that it was first person, which is when I actually started to play it and try it out, but they decided to bring it back to third person because of player-based preference. It is what it is. That might turn off a lot of people. I don't think third person is that difficult to play if you're a primarily first person player, but also you can just play in first person yourself. You can set a key bind to pop yourself in and out of third person, first person when you're playing in third person mode, and this is across, I think, every single game mode, including the regular Battle Royale. Why would you do that? I don't really know. But in this case, if you just don't want to play third person, you can play this in first person, and because everyone else or most other people are going to be third person, that will give them an advantage, but that means that you can train against players who have an advantage over you, which will, make the training even better. So that's definitely something to look at. Even if you're an individual who is just like allergic to third person, you can still play first person yourself. And in fact, it might even be even better training tool for you to play that way, because it will give your enemies a handicap in a way, and it will force you to play better if you want to defeat them. Now, if you really want a challenge, you can solo queue into this. Basically, just make sure the fill team checkmark at the about to queue into the game mode is unchecked. It's just you. You will be a solo in this game. But if you're a really, really good player, like you guys know, a lot of top-level pro players do play solo squads because they're just that good. They can just wipe out a squad in essentially an instant. So if you're that good, you can play in this way. But I also think it could be useful training to play solo because it'll give you opportunities to practice how to clutch out an endgame scenario as the last person alive on your team. Really, it's going to be incredibly difficult to actually win any of these games as a solo. But if you're a solo and there are two full squads that are fighting off against each other, this is a really good opportunity to train how do you third party properly in a way to permanently damage both the teams, and whichever one survives, it puts you in a much better scenario to make the 1vx easier. Because if you just, as we all know, if you just wait it out and have the two full teams fight each other, it's generally going to put you in like a 1v3, 1v4 at the very end. But if you're actually engaged and you're active as a solo, as long as you don't get killed yourself, you sort of just stay on the outer rings, and you're just a really annoying mosquito to the other two teams fighting, you can really bring it down to like making it a 1v2 or sometimes even a 1v1 at the end if you strike properly. And so this could also be a really good training tool for that. That's more for the higher level players that would use this as a training tool. But regardless, if you just don't feel like queuing up into a full squad, you can still get into the game and have some opportunities to get better through this game mode playing as a solo without queuing into a stack of randoms. So that's my pitch on why you should give Intense Battle Royale a chance, give it an opportunity. I find it very enjoyable. Hopefully you will as well. If you guys aren't aware, I am starting to build out a community Discord for my followers of my content, of my stream. By the way, I do also stream routinely, mostly covering competitive scrims, but I'm going to start to open that up, open to more content. And in this Discord that I'm building, I'm looking to start to eventually be able to put together Intense Battle Royale customs. So if you're interested in playing Intense Battle Royale with people of like-minded interests, feel free to click the Discord join link below. It's still a new community, so we're still building things out, but hopefully it'll grow into something fun and special, and we'll be able to find more people with shared interests and hobbies. That's it for the video. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you'll give Intense Battle Royale an opportunity. Make sure to follow my socials for content that comes out, whether more videos or live streams, and I will see everyone next time.